In today's video, we'll be focusing on broadcast herbicide applications, specifically talking about tank mixing. We'll be joined by Dr. Josh McGinty, our Extension Agronomist, to talk about compatibility, mixing order, and the importance of a jar test. Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service does not endorse any products shown in our videos. These products are shown for educational purposes only to demonstrate available products on the market.
My name is Josh McGinty. I serve as Extension Agronomist for field crops and forage crops in South Texas, based in Corpus Christi. One thing I want to talk about is herbicide tank mixing. And by tank mix, I mean we're taking multiple products, putting them into the same tank and applying them together, which has benefit to reducing your application costs. So you're not paying for multiple applications, you're accomplishing multiple goals with that single application. But when we start to tank mix products, we have to watch out for a few things. The first is if on any product that you're putting in the tank, that label says, do not tank mix with product X, Y, or Z, okay, that's a legal requirement. We cannot make that tank mix. It's specifically prohibited on the product label. If the tank mix you're looking to put together is not specifically prohibited on the product label, then we have to think about a couple of things. First is chemical incompatibility, meaning if I put product X with product Y, they may result in some antagonism where one of the pests that we're after will not be controlled as well as it would if that product was applied alone. Typically, that's not going to be very well spelled out on a product label. That's a situation where I would definitely recommend calling your county extension agent, calling the specialist at your district headquarters. When it comes to chemical incompatibility, that is something that we test in a lot of our field plots, and that's something that we're pretty well aware of. I'll say this, for range and pasture, there's very few of those types of issues. Typically, we're mixing multiple auxinic herbicides or group 4 herbicides. They tend to get along with each other fairly well. But again, it's worth asking a few questions before you make a tank mix that you haven't before, just to rule out that as being a problem. We don't want to spend all the money on that product, all the time and effort spent into mixing it and applying it, come to find out that we have some reduced weed or brush control as a result. The other issue we have to worry about is physical incompatibility. And that's where the products, as they go into the tank, don't mix together well. And so there's a somewhat easy way to remember how to get around most of those issues, and that is the Wales method, W-A-L-E-S, which walks you through the mixing order of products that need to go into the tank. So the W stands for wettable powders. These are going to be your dry products. So I've got one here. This is a flumioxazin product, kind of like Valor that we use in row crops, but you can see it's a dry material. In this case, these are clay pellets that then have the herbicide impregnated upon them. Chaparral for range and pasture, Pastora, Metsulfuron, Escort, these are all going to be formulated as dries. So these need to go into the tank first, and I actually like to pre-mix them a little bit, meaning I put them in a bucket with a small amount of water and go ahead and make a slurry, and then I pour that slurry into the tank. It helps them mix because this is clay at the end of the day, the carrier. It is going to try to settle out. So the better we can agitate and get that clay into suspension, the better it's going to mix up in the tank. After you get your dries in the tank, then we want to turn on our agitation, meaning the recirculation from the pump back into the tank. And we want to go ahead and get that running and leave it running until we're done mixing the tank. So that's A, W-A in Wales. When we get to L, that's going to include, first off, there's going to be liquid products, but first off, it's going to be your suspension concentrates and CS formulations, which those are the products that are kind of milky or chalky in the tank. I've got a little spray bottle here that's mixed up with one of those type products. So they turn the solution white because you have a bunch of particles in there that are in suspension in those products. So any of those chalky type products, put them in the tank, followed by the other liquids, which would be your SLs and your Ls. This is a generic glyphosate product, so this is an SL formulation. Typically these are going to be salts or esters, and they're translucent. Most of these products, you're going to be able to see through them very easily. Those are very soluble products that would then go in after those chalky type products. And then that covers our L out of Wales. Then we go to the E, and that is the emulsifiable concentrates. which are your oil-based products. This is a product here, Sure 2, and it tells you on that label that it's an emulsifiable concentrate. So this is an oily substance that has some other components in the product that help it mix into water. We want to make sure we put those in after all of those products that are very soluble in water. Then we get to the S in whales. That's going to be your surfactants and other adjuvants. So your non-ionic surfactant, it's going to be your crop oil, your methylated seed oil, those types of things. Those always go in last. One thing that's not addressed with whales, that acronym, is ammonium sulfate. So some products may recommend putting ammonium sulfate or urea ammonium nitrate, a fertilizer source, into that tank mix before you mix everything else. Definitely put those in first, especially ammonium sulfate. That's going to be a dry product. Get that in the tank first, and then we start that whales procedure that we just outlined. To illustrate why this is important, I've done a couple of things. Mixing a suspension concentrate and a soluble liquid or an SL formulation together. So here is where I've done things correctly. So I put the suspension concentrate in. That's the chalky type products like diuron, in this case Cotoran. This is a row crop chemical here. I put that into the tank first, then shake that up a little bit, and then I put in my SL, in this case a generic glyphosate. And then I gave that one good swirl about 15-20 minutes ago, and you can see, and we'll give you a better close-up of this later, but you can see everything's nice and homogeneous. Now, given enough time, this will eventually settle out to some extent. So if I was to mix this up today and come back and spray it tomorrow, it's going to try to settle out, but typically we can get that back into suspension pretty easily with some agitation. So that was the correct mix order. This is the incorrect mixing order. So the same products in the same tank, but I reversed the order. I put the generic glyphosate, the SL formulation, into this first. Then I followed that up with the SC, in this case Cotoran, the chalky substance, in afterwards. The reason I know how to show you this is because I've made this mistake. And this is one of those where I mixed up a sprayer, a big sprayer, in this order. I wasn't thinking, I wasn't as educated at the time. And I ran that sprayer into a field, and I made about 10 feet into the field, and the whole sprayer plugged up. Because when you mix in that order, you get some precipitate in the bottom. You get this kind of latex type formation in the bottom of that tank. Typically your pump's pulling from the bottom of the tank. That gets pulled through the pump, through the screens, and it goes out to the nozzles and plugs all of them up. Even if I mix this up by hand, you can actually see all that latex, those little particles that were formed swirling around the tank. They're going to eventually in a few minutes just settle out to the bottom. So this stuff is really important. This is a tank mixture that is perfectly suitable, perfectly allowable, legal, and effective if you do it right. If you do it wrong, you're going to have problems all day long. Everything's going to plug up. You're just going to be fighting an uphill battle. So this is kind of what we call a jar test, where if you're going to make a tank mix for the first time, you've never done it before, it's always a good idea to take, maybe a pint or a quart jar, fill that up with water, and then mix your products beforehand in, proportionate amounts to what you would in the tank. Mix them in the correct order, again using the Wales method, and then watch that jar, give it 10-15 minutes, and see if you start to have any kind of separation, or like we have here, all of these precipitates that are coming out. I would rather make the mistake on a pint jar than a 250-gallon tank, right? So jar test in a few minutes can save you a lot of time and save you a lot of money.
If you have any questions, please reach out to your local county extension agent, or feel free to contact Dr. Josh McGinty or myself. This has been Dr. Stacy Hines with Range Decisions. Until next time.